Thank you so much for being here for the Wild and Precious Life series. We're doing what we do every reading, which is bring you talented writers that you're going to enjoy. I'm a homosexual, so I love a theme, and tonight is a themed reading. It's an evening celebrating Harbor Editions, which is this imprint of Small Harbor Publishing. So all of our authors tonight will be reading from their Small Harbor collections. And I just have to give a shout out since we're celebrating Small Harbor Publishing to its founder, Allison Blevins, who is just an amazing human being. She really is the queen of nice. I can't tell you how many times I have to tell her, no, don't be that nice to people. It's true. I could probably retire. That's how nice she is. And I have to give a shout out to Christiane Weeks Rogers. Anyone that has published a book with us has worked very closely with Christine. She does that hard work of keeping us on task, making sure deadlines are met, and does all the uploading of the book into the systems to make sure it gets published, and keeps me on task. These women get shit done, and I am so very grateful to know them and to work with them, and that they put so much of their energy and love in this press. So drop them a line. Tell them you appreciate what they do. The small press industry is a hard one. So don't be shy with your love to the people that are running any small press. So with that, we have free shit tonight. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start with a giveaway. So every giveaway tonight is going to be a copy of each book. So you're going to get 3 fucking free books. So the first person to put in the chat free shit is getting all 3 books. Oh, Ben's got it. Ben's got all 3. Don't worry. There will be more chances to win, but I will change the phrase. So don't think you can type free shit and have it ready to go. So, Ben, I know your address. You don't even have to email me. We'll take care of it. So, our first fabulous reader of the evening is Travis Chiwing Lau, and I am so glad. Actually, everybody, it's their second time back at the Bottom Precious Life series, so I'm very excited about that. I'm going to read you some about Travis's book, What's Left is Tender. What's Left is Tender explores tenderness as an act, an affect, a relation, a sensation, a theory. In a series of lyric, informal experiments, this collection interrogates how tenderness is often at the very intersections of disability, queerness, and race, and how often that tenderness can also simultaneously mean struggle, discomfort, and even trauma. These poems explore the tenderness of being cared for, of caring for others, and how that care can sometimes itself be painful, even as it may attempt to ease that pain. This book ultimately asks if poetry's tenderness can tender new ways of thinking about the ethics of care. I am so glad to have you back, friend, and I can't wait till we finally get to meet in real life and share a hug. The screen is yours.
Thanks so much, Justin. It is kind of surreal. When you said that, I was like, wow, we really do know each other for years now, and we've actually never shared space together. One day I'll go to AWP, except that I feel like my academic career just tries every year to make sure I never go. I've tried 7 years in a row, and so far I'm 7 for 7. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. I think Justin put it earlier as like literally the world's burning and stuff is awful, but I really appreciate opportunities to share space, especially around creative work. And you'll have to forgive me today. I was teaching up until about 5 o'clock, so I am running on fumes, but I feel like this will be precisely the kind of energy I need. Just for access reasons, I have an access copy of all the poems I'm going to be reading tonight. If it is easier for you to read along, I wanted to make sure that was available. So I have a selection of about 10 poems. My poems tend to be fairly short, and they are different sections from this book called What's Left is Tender. I just wanted to shout out I actually have not done this yet, and I feel so embarrassed. I'm actually going to shout out the artist who put together this piece. This is actually a a watercolor painting done by Kevin Kinzer, who is a Columbus-based artist. And this piece was actually painted from a live model. It was a collaboration in the sense that I told Kevin, read the work and do what you do best. He's known for doing graphite and pencil drawings, but he turned to watercolor for this, and he's like, it felt like the most tender medium, and I think he's absolutely right. So the first poem I'm going to read is a pantoum that I think really is the spirit of this collection. Pantoums are one of my favorite forms. One, because I used to be terrible at writing them. I still am, actually. But they require, I think, something that whenever I teach pantoums, I think the thing I like to stress is that it is a form that is repetition with difference, right? You see a set of lines appear in one stanza, but by the time it arrives in the next stanza, it has to echo in some ways the same words, but meaning shifts. And I actually found it to be a very difficult form to do right. And this was one of out of the 50 million attempts I had, this was the one that felt the closest to what I was hoping to get at. So this poem is entitled, When Did We Learn That Hitting Things Made Them More Tender? When did we learn that hitting things made them more tender? Rather than a caress, we prefer the mallet that softens the chew. We make them more tender for the crassness of a need. The mallet that softens the chew breaks apart humble flesh, for the crassness of a need takes no care in breaking apart humble from flesh, limp now with submission. Taking no care, we together limp now with submission toward each other. We together praise the blows that ache us toward each other, back into new hardness. Praise the blows that ache us. This is how we put our backs into new hardness when we could have remained soft. A lot of my work is interested in the medical industrial complex, thinking about the challenges of what it means to navigate medicine. Um, the many of the poems that I chose for today are ones I actually have really never read out loud. This poem is really simply titled Oath, and it's of course referring to the Hippocratic Oath. Um, so yeah, Oath. The labor of healing is a promise, the binding of word to deed. Before the doing, before the din of choice and spilled blood, never again to be returned to its vessel burst under too much pressure. What becomes of a promise woven by tongue that finds itself tied too tight, tightened by hands that never dirty but for the counting of bodies made of coins? The bodies jingle with profit, and the oath rings in resonance. Holy, hallowed, hollow. A lot of my work is also about disability experience. I live with two curves in my spine, and that has drastically changed the shape of my body over these years. If anyone looks at a photograph of me head on, I have my left rib tends to jut out a lot in photographs. So I'm extremely aware of the way that my body looks, especially as it's changed slowly over these years as my spinal curvature worsens. Um, and I haven't always spoken nicely to my own body. And this was one of the very few attempts in which I tried to do that. This poem is entitled To My Rib. To my rib, you look today more like a peninsula, a bold jutting into a skin sea, ever more turbulent. This I know because of what escapes the yearly exposure to a light trying to prove its own benevolence. You seem to crave secession from this aching formation, this rude construction barely wanting to remain fastened to itself, as if this is what it means to hold oneself in contempt, a slatternly cling to what would rather be elsewhere. Related to this, the only way I keep my chronic pain at bay is I see a chiropractor who I pretty much entrust um, with the manipulation of my spine every week. I've actually written a number of poems to my chiropractor, but in some ways, I feel like the care that they offer, the pain that they keep at bay, that's in some ways something I feel like I can never truly thank them for. This is for my former chiropractor, Douglas Black. And the poem is entitled Laying On of Hands. Arms crossed, I learn again to bear the weight of a palm because the body can relearn how to touch instead of wince at what was once a lash to the back, a violent something felt underneath, a wondering whether the ache will stay or desert me. When I am finally able to mouth the word ease, the force of his fingers undo any pretending of myself into acceptable shapes. All of them willed until I grew stony, but return now into a cumbrous clog of clay. The dissolving begins, quick, a fractional motion, resolving into a pleasurable expanse, fuller in his hold and already fading. I'm really struck by moments of care in poems, especially poems of witnessing. Um, Many of the folks in this room know that I've written a lot about a former partner who passed away from complications due to HIV/AIDS. This is one of the poems that I struggled for a long time with trying to get right. I feel like this is maybe the seventh iteration of this poem, and I still don't feel like it's quite right. This is also an homage to the HIV/AIDS poets that shaped so much of my work. This poem's title is Garnet, and this is after, predictably, Tom Gunn, who continues to shape my work to this day. I witnessed the moment garnet swallowed the periphery of your eye, a former brilliance blinking itself into the lengthening spaces, chasms, fields that is a breath who gives no life but an earthy gasp, heaving, stop, an unbearable intermediate place where a kiss and a word no longer reach, and I hold my own, you and patience, until I may be delivered into time again. Tender rejection, flush of fluid, mistaken for life. I started using a cane the past year as a mobility aid, and I have been trying to convince my mother, who has the exact same spinal curvature as I do, but she has too much pride to use one. So my current agenda has been to sort of normalize the use of it. It hasn't quite worked, but it's a work in progress, and my hope is maybe with a few poetic incantations, she may actually take up my offer for it. This poem is on purchasing a cane. To convince her that I share her pain, here hovering between us like locusts on fragile crop, rent open to the planet on the brink, I hint to her of a curved form, solid rather than inchoate, substantial rather than ethereal, that could support a crooked future filled and hobbling with our stooping, fierce and exultant, a crutch for joy that she and I can reach when we must, if only to make our bodies quiet manifestos. The next three poems are fairly short as well, and they're all poems about desire, attempts at dealing with desire, in some cases, desire that's unrequited or desire that I don't know what to do with. The next poem is actually an homage to a song by Orville Peck called Dead of Night. And I adore that song because it's very much about what it means to desire something at the wrong time of day and feeling like you can't fulfill that desire. I also, when I was in high school, I was told that I should never begin and end sentences with prepositions. So my cruel sense of pleasure is that I decided to title this poem beginning with a preposition and ending with a preposition. So this poem is entitled "In the Dead of." In the dead of laden night, I asked for a crumb of old bread, so that some spirit of you would seed me hard with sights standing on its hind legs, a balancing trick for an old dog, soft with knowing, like old plums bruising into worlds that will outlive us both. I've always loved, and maybe this is because I study and teach literary history, I've really loved the genre of the obad, or the poem written after the morning after a, let's just say, spirited evening with a companion, and the sort of bittersweetness of parting. And I wanted to try to capture that feeling, especially as a queer writer. And I feel like this is maybe the first one I've ever felt kind of captured the feeling as I hoped. This poem is entitled Afterglow. We already suspected the day was dying, eyes tailing the sun's ruddy smears across the trees who were marking themselves for death, for when the cold would hold its solemn court. As if it were instinct, you held tightly to a slim bar of sunlight, a glowing fool's gold that maybe you believed you could take with you, maybe me too, in a back pocket, with the safety thread not yet broken. Where I might belong when for years I only knew it in theory, in shock, like the way the earth rumbles before a major event, rumbles in the memory, groaning with the omens a crow carries to the window, sealed shut with poor paint. We both felt the wintry seep, but two pant legs had already been filled. The the next poem is a cento, which I love them because in some ways they are, I think, tissues of citations of all the influences that I feel like my work is in dialogue with. And this is a poem about struggling with having a desire that maybe doesn't align with a partner or doesn't align with the life conditions that gave birth to it, but also failed to hold it in some ways. This is Cento for Wantonness. The enormity of my desire disgusts me, because rapacity doesn't swerve before what it feasts on, hungry for this and this and this. How a body tends to follow its own weight to its own place, not always downward or always toward the earth, but to its own place. The body's doctrine of need and scarcity. A calling brinks the unutterable. It's a human need to give shapelessness a form, each a small emergency, a requiring. Praise to the pain scalding us toward each other, to each his own urgency. My last poem is the most recent one. Um, after I finished What's Left is Tender, I went into a fallow period that really just I think finished, hopefully. And I'm writing now toward a project about faithlessness and grappling with spirituality. And this poem, I think, was my first real attempt at writing toward this project. And it's about addressing a God that doesn't respond back. This poem's title is Beseech Me No More. And Alison Blevins actually chose it for a group of poems that she published. So in many ways, it felt appropriate to end with it. Beseech me no more, my crooked child, for your keenest edges arrive implied in reddened eyes, which gaze to trace how mercy never left this world, long pronounced doomed before I ever did. No, though you stared at it all enough to grow so stony, you still curve into living like the currents that first bore you. You grovel for succor and its thousand handmaidens, but really, it is pardon you crave, as if it were ever mine to give you. Cease now your begging for refuge in some other forms that bray against the mechanics of your life bent toward an aching good. Thank you all so much. I can't wait to hear my fellow pressmates. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Travis. I put Travis's website in the chat and a link for the book. However, you can win a copy of Travis's book, of Jessica's book, and Evelyn's book. Did that feel dramatic enough? I'm trying to be very dramatic. So, to win all three books, you need to type Travis's first name, which is Travis, and you got to spell it fucking right too. We're no freebies if you can't spell it right. It's literally right there on the screen. There we go. It looks like Kathleen. Kathleen, I think I have your address too, friend, since I know you in the real world. So we'll get that out. You know what? Maybe we should away another book. Yeah, let's do it. Why don't we give another set of books? The next person reading is Jessica. So type Jessica's name. First person. Oh, Sabaga's on it. There we go. So next up, don't you love that? I just love giving away free shit. Who doesn't love free shit? Um, So our next poet of the evening is Jessica L. Walsh. And before I tell you about Jessica's book, I do have to say something first because Jessica and I met by chance at AWP last year, and we had like a good convo. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to this thing tonight. You want to be my date?" And she was like, sure. And that just sort of set the course for a friendship that then became a texting friendship, emailing friendship, checking in, how are you, girl? What's going on with life? And then we had this idea to throw a cheese party that we hatched last year, an AWP cheese party. And it was one of those things that I mentioned it, and I was like, well, we seem like we're good friends. Is this going to happen? And I'll be damned. We got to AWP a day early. We cheese shopped. We enjoyed some Coke Zeros and some delicious cheese dip and had the most wonderful time celebrating with people. And I just have to say that, I love so many writers, but then when you get to know somebody a little more closely, the beautiful friendship that developed means so much to me. And I am so grateful that I can call you friend, and I can't wait to see our friendship to continue to grow over the years. Now
Mhm.
I've had my mushy moment. Back to the business because I'm an ice queen. Jessica Walsh is reading from Blowdown tonight. In an effort to understand how people grow from the soil of their family's past, and particularly how I got to be, this is Jessica writing this, by the way, sorry, how I got to be who I am as a person and poet. Blowdown takes on the work of archaeology. Historical evidence, most newly found during the process of writing the book, uncovers so little of the truth. Instead, what I find remains fully fragmented. Like pieces of bone unearthed after centuries, these poems attempt to piece those fragments into story, to build narrative in the absence of one. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Um, Likewise to you, I had such an amazing time, and I'm so grateful for all the people that I know in the writing community, um, especially you. And Travis, your poems were just so amazing that I feel like I just want to like curl up and digest them now. I was just listening to every single thing. Um, Incredible. Um, so yeah, I'm reading from Blowdown, brand new. Um, and let me see. So I picked a few poems to try to kind of represent the arc of what the book does. Um, and I'm going to start with a poem that addresses the idea that got the whole book to life, which was talking about it was originally inspired by the drought at Lake Mead in whatever year it was, 2019 maybe, um, and what kept showing up as this lake receded, including bodies. It's near Vegas, so and people trying to figure out what do we do with everything that has shown up. And I've been somebody who wondered a lot and missed having a really large extended family. I had a really small, powerful little nuclear family, but I always wanted more of that in my life. Um, and so I kind of dug into the absence and all of the stories, the way that somebody would approach that lake bed, looking for what am I finding and what does it mean, and where do I fit into this, if at all? Do I have any right to it? So this poem is What the Lake Gives Back. Choked fish silver the surface as drought pulls back the curtain on all we hid there. Beer cans and liquor bottles, TVs and fridges, a washing machine. Heat cracks wide the mud to hand back our bones, sometimes whole skeletons, mostly the odd tibia or vertebrae. One skull near another. If they sank together or if one sent the other, they won't tell. Our people die with secrets sealed in their mouths. Look, we drank too much. Couldn't be bothered with permits and long rides out to the county dump. We had stuff, but not money. We settled our business. I'm sorry to our sewn shut past when I write what we tried to hide, layering fresh flesh onto fossils, like life itself is nothing but imagination. So into all of that, I was trying to figure out more or less like how did I end up who I am, you know, like and I that was one of the questions of digging into family is how do you get to be what past has created you. And so this poem is with my boots on. Whose winged project was I when I crashed into a pile of dirt and held it like the front line, playing king of the hill the way my mother taught me, kicking boys in the face when they came for me, watching them tumble away? Bitch, they said. And it's true. I ripped into life looking for a fight I can't win or tap out of. So give me my accounting. Pulp this family tree and make of it a ledger. Where did that marrow come from? Whose chicken legs and soft belly? Who loosed my bones and clenched my fists? Who traded beauty for breadth, gave me guilt without confession? What gave birth to my debts, poured the salt of my thirst? Who made me fall in love with death and life in equal parts, robbing graves to circle skeletons like a sad birthday party that ends in sad poetry? Who holds me here through decades I believed could never come? Whose long nights do I keep when my body tosses to dawn? Who flays and wires my mind with the same terrible questions, then binds my head in the silence of a disappointing seance? Who are the shadows at my back from long before my life that skitter away when I turn my head? Where are they, the resolute who wrote my answers? What part of me was inevitable, or was I always past the point? I'm asking, am I my own fault? Um, at another AWP a few years back, I got to reconnect with a cousin I hadn't seen in like 20 years, and I love her dearly, like a sister. And our lives forked at a really interesting time. And so um, part of that was inspired by that meeting. Part of this next poem, multiples of one. Take the one who ditched Michigan for Hawaii, waited till her 6 kids were full grown before she left the drunk who'd hurt them all. What I keep is one visit. We ate fish and looked out her window to green mountains. I remember a waterfall, and I think that's wrong. I added it most likely from a picture of Oahu, trying to stretch Flash into novel, like I could write family into my life. I can never come back, she told my dad when he sent her a ticket, then kept repeating herself until he stopped trying at all. My beautiful cousin tells me over sweet coffee that she owes her whole life to the same woman who missed mine. This is a warning against story, against exactly what you are trying to do. There's no hope these ghosts will settle when they can't even choose a form, forever flipping tete bêche, a grandmother who loved one and let the other fall away, a mom who hugged her kids but fed the wolf who hunted them. Um, I don't think this one needs an explanation. I keep trying to tell you how my skin tightened and pinched like scales were pushing through to shield me, how I could not swear if he was one man or many, peeling into flickering replicas until he covered every door and corner, how his laugh cut and slashed across the room like flames chasing gin, how I still can't find a word for what he was, just that whenever he came around, something came with him. All right, so today is my mom's 80th birthday, and she is most likely not watching now because she doesn't get this Zoom shit, but she might watch it. That would be her own, at least at best. That would be her least profane way of saying it. But she may watch it on recording, so I want to mention how great she is and how strong she is. And one of the things that I found in an archival description of an ancestor of ours, a woman who just did impossible work with like six kids on a farm while her husband kept leaving, and she ran the farm and raised the kids, and um, but this phrase was part of the description of her, which I loved, and so I wrote it about the women in our family, and the line, it's called "Stern of Will." If jeans print what makes a bitch, I had no chance. That switch was flipped before my lungs sucked air and stuck on screech for weeks. Mom smoked trues and rocked me, pacing out fury. Still, my anger burns, fed by itself, a gift of every generation, a curse of cursing, one to the next. I don't blame our first stern mother for giving me enough to thrive. I own my temper, my hot decisions, the way I force my will on love to craft the list of who I'll keep and who I'll toss to wolves or men. The records echo over and over. These bitches run their lives like war, positive of mind and force. That last line is another phrase from it, positive of mind and force. I was like, what what subtext is there? I think these are difficult people. um, which is cool. That's how you get through. I'm going to read a poem that I don't think I've ever shared before. I was thinking about the person it's about just yesterday, and I thought it was time to read this one for the first time. Um, a, a friend and coworker who I lost during COVID to cancer. Um, this is for Sean. Elegy as aloud. In the minutes before the day began, I read that a good man died, a man I knew from before, and I placed grief neatly on the list of needs that needed me. He'd get it. He knew work in its many forms, how it spared no one, least of all folks like us who came from folks like ours. He knew me and my many forms, that I would hold on through the day until night came quiet and solitary, that I'd fill dark hours with his death, wake up with swollen eyes, and work. I'm going to read two more, I think, if that's, are we good? I trust you, Dustin, to actually tell me. So, okay. um, okay. This one's called Teeth. I fell hard and then harder, maybe tripped in childhood's wild. That's the story I have, and I look for no other. When I woke up, I had a stuffed Grover and four pouring holes. My gums couldn't stop my tongue. My tongue couldn't stop slipping lipward. I said fit for sit, Vesica for myself, and nothing when the kids laughed. I spoke only back-mouthed words until my mom went back to work, put money down for a retainer from the dentist whose kids I played with, who probably gave us a discount no one would speak of. At the brickwork college on a green hill where prep school kids laugh at my town, everyone has good teeth, except cafeteria workers and slow moving women who clean dorm halls and common rooms. I try for their eyes. I want to smoke with them behind buildings, complain about the rich kids. But to the cleaning women, I'm a rich kid. To the rich kids, I'm a redneck turned ringer, a rural girl with ACTs to boost the mean. My teeth are good, my grades better, and the people I can talk to won't talk to me. I have no lisp nor language to use. Okay. And the last one is the final poem from the book. I had a moment when I realized that what I was asking was as much absolution as it was explanation. And that was not something that I could give to my ancestors who were not angels, nor was it something that they could give to me. And so this last poem in the book was the the conclusion of the journey for me emotionally. Bone Road. I think I want to let you go. I wanted you to tell me why it hurts so much to be alive and what part you had in me, what you started and ended, how you lasted through catastrophe or made amends for causing it. I wanted you to be why I am what I am, to tell me how I can leave myself behind. But you're drops of water in the river, not the river I was dipped in when I first took breath. Lethe's opposite, anointing me with perpetual remembering. I ask too much of you. Let me ask too much of myself for whatever's left of this raggedy life. I release you to the road where I'll find you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I get to our final fabulous reader of the evening, I want to give a reminder that the Wild and Precious Life series is turning 6. Can you believe it? 6 years of this series that I hope has brought y'all as much joy that it has been in my life. I don't know how I would have gotten through the pandemic without it. It really was every Wednesday. We did it every week during the pandemic, and I really, really looked forward to Wednesday with my laptop on stacks of toilet paper because thankfully we had just went to Costco just as time would have it before it hit an obscene amount of Pinot Grigio. This series really did help me stay focused and have a bright light in the pandemic. And so I do thank everyone for coming and being part of it. So I do hope you will come on April 1st to celebrate 6 years. We have over 20 readers. Everyone is reading one poem. The whole point is just to give you a big dose of readers throughout the time of the Wild and Precious Life. So it would make my heart really happy to see you on April 1st. So I think we should give away more books. So, what day is the 6 year reading? Oh, Ashley, you've got the books. I still have more to give away. Hold on, let me write down Ashley's name. I'm getting old. If I don't do it, I'll forget. And don't, I want Ashley to keep liking me. So our final reader of the evening is Evelyn Berry. What's the last name of our final reader of the evening for some more free books? There we go. Amy, putting Amy down. And Amy, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in the chat later what the email address is so you can send me your info, you and Ashley. So our final reader of the evening is the fabulous Evelyn Berry. Evelyn, I know in real life too, and Evelyn was actually our first writer to stay in our home since we moved in when she came to Asheville, and did a reading. And Evelyn is just also another fabulous human who is a dynamic reader, performer, and literary citizen. When I think of Evelyn, I often think of how she makes sure to build up writers in our queer community. She looks out for everyone, but Evelyn definitely looks out for people that are part of the LGBTQI community and making sure to lift them up and support them. And I want her to have a round of applause for that because queer people, trans people, we're all under attack. Most of our trans brothers and sisters right now. And so making space and looking out for each other is more important than it probably has ever been, given the attacks that are happening right now. So Evelyn is just a delight and wonderful human to know. And then I have to throw this in because Travis read an Obad. I was at a reading and Evelyn asked, did anybody know what an Abad was? And I think I was the only person that raised my hand. And she's like, well, do you want to tell the people? And I was like, no, because really I was just going to say, you write a poem and you fuck somebody and leave them. But I didn't feel like maybe I should say that at the bookstore. And then Evelyn did like the most gorgeous overview of what an abad was. So I was really happy that I didn't try to be funny because she just gave this beautiful explanation. And I was like, damn, Dustin, that joke would have made you seem like an idiot. But thank you for those who laughed here tonight. So, for Evelyn's introduction, I'm going to read something that Amelia Phillips, who's the author of Non-Binary Bird of Paradise, wrote about Evelyn's chapbook Tea for Tea, which is published by Small Harbor. Lest one forget, pleasure is a human right. Evelyn Barry edges the reader towards that realization again and again and again in Tea for Tea. Of course, pleasure is sexual, the ways that lovers pretend our freckles honeysuckle. But it's not just sexual, it's beyond sexual. It is the pleasure of life, of embodiment, of safety, and of care and attention, the latter of which are two descriptors I could easily also apply to Barry's craft. Those line breaks like a switchblade surprise. And the title says who the pleasure is for and with whom the pleasure is shared, trans for trans, that delectable erotic symmetry. But pleasure, unlike some romantic notions of it, isn't best when it is fleeting. Pleasure is best enjoyed, transmutated, and ever evolving over long lives. And stay here. The chapbook's Ariata for Trans Femmes, Barry writes, love you here, love you safe, love you more than everything. The speaker here can't tune out the background noise of America fascism, eviction notices, egg price hikes, hashtags to memorialize yet another trans woman who has been murdered, but the knowledge of what's at risk and the vision of what can be in a trans-utopic alternative reality leaves Barry with a choice. What is the best proof of her glittering luminescent life? It's not the wound. No, I won't flaunt the wound to prove I'm still alive, she insists. It's physical connection, feral desire. Kiss me, she writes. Remind me I'm still here. Thank you for being here, friend. The screen is yours.
Hello. I feel like I can just say thank you. That was really great. I love hearing you read that. Thank y'all. Oh, can y'all hear me better when I hold my mic up to my mouth? My name is Evelyn Barry. Thank you for having me. I am so blown away by hearing the poetry. I kept like writing down lines because it's like, you know, when you hear or read poetry and you're like, actually, I think the best thing you can do in your life is like dedicate your life to reading and writing and thinking about poetry because sometimes poetry is just that good. That's what I feel like right now, hearing your work. So thank you for sharing it. I'm going to read some poems. If you want to read along, there's a document from my work account. I'm going to read first from T4T. In praise of being fat, who names this sin to love my fat body? Let me praise where I've been, this lived in skin. My belly sings a ballad ripening. An abundant garden, Gorgon gorgeous. If I must be myth monstrous, I'll sharpen my teeth. I'll rewrite the story myself. I'm transsexual Orpheus of smut, orifice with an oral fixation. Fill my mouth with grease, chocolate, feast of chubby thighs, thick calves, spit and cum and sweat. I'll regret nothing. Not red dress excess, not afternoon sex in a king-sized bed. My loves, their bodies like mine, intertwined. We are laughing and fat and hot as fuck. The first poem in this chapbook is kind of my attempt to um, explain to a cis person like what a just day-to-day trans experiences like. I was thinking about like what would I say to my coworkers to kind of like explain just kind of a day in my life. So this is called Transsexual Confessional. I forget my own monstrosity until someone reminds me. They'll rubberneck my funeral to Sherlock my birth sex. You get used to it, the staring when starring in your own 24/7 sitcom, the too loud whisper, the obvious gesture, the prying question. I could try to play along, the usable suspect, moonlight as hermaphrodite hermit haunting the wet dreams of legislators. To tell them the names my lover calls me, but they write on my body in impermanent ink. And my mother balks at the body slick songs I whistle through as a godwit to deliver the rehearsed plea, a past drafted for palatable consumption, but I won't give them that. Won't tell how panic fangs my brain, freeze, calligraphed with tragic stories of how uncertainty, then shame beget death. I know how a girl like me becomes a cautionary tale. We recite to help each other survive. No, I won't flaunt the wound to prove I'm alive. I want to read some sex poems, so I'm going to do that now. I guess I already read some poems that talked about sex, but we have to get more explicit, I think. This is called Easy Worship. And this is for my spouse, who's amazing. You tease me for the love of your armpits, which you haven't shaved for 4 years. But I also adore your collarbone, your strong calves, your shoulders, your hips dipping beneath your soft belly's lush folds, where sometimes I lick sweat as if droughted. I am wet for every inch of you. I've been really into sonnets lately, because of the constraints and the restraints that they offer. This is a poem about me learning to write a sonnet, and it's called Discipline. When you swing swift, open palm to pinken my upturned ass, I brace for the soft sting. I take a sharp breath, then the ache stills me. Your hands remind me to whom I belong. You grasp my long hair, pull taut to tame me, snare a whimper until I gasp your name. Give me this reverie. Animal urged to break free, I beg, please don't stop. I lose count and collapse, still obescent in your embrace. You caress where you've bruised, where you've used skin to mark me your canvas. You coax me back from the brink of spent sense. Call me good girl, your leather leashed darling. I promise I'll be a good girl this time. Because Travis brought up Abods and Dustin did too, I figured it would be fun to read an Abod of my own. This is from Grief Sluts, which is right here. And it's called, and you'll never guess where this was published. You'll guess it right away if you're familiar with this particular literary magazine. It's extremely themed. Abod with Baja Blast spiked with gin. In the morning, sunlight oozes thin between blind slats, like cheese from the edges of a quesadilla. I wake, booze bamboozled, blood still sluggish with last night's clumsy desire. We territory the space between skin into something other than fear. Somehow, he is still here. I admit last night may have benefited if I had not scarfed Taco Bell before we made love, but listen, I didn't know he'd want to talk. I didn't know he'd want to mouth my neck. Listen, I didn't plan to drink so much, didn't anticipate the exhausted gasp spilling everything. Tumult of spew, holy sphincter, made uninhabitable by the passage of Dorito Locos Tacos 1 hour later. Does he know what shames I have evacuated for him tonight? I tell him about loneliness. It is a drive-through window and not enough change. I am so clueless, my brief darling. It is possible to be gorgeous and still regret everything. I am trying to tell the difference between light and what light touches. I am trying to tell the difference between how he speaks about his body and how he speaks about mine. He tells me it feels better to eat nothing at all, to let this body become a hollow bell singing. He refused even the morsel of a nacho fry, sudden ascetic. He denied himself every pleasure except my mouth. I was debating reading a super long poem, and I'm not going to do it because I was going to see how much time I had. But the title poem is so long, and now I'm like, ooh, maybe that was a mistake. But who cares? I wanted to write a long poem, so I'm going to read it two different poems instead, and one is called "Ugh" or like "Ugh," which I I just like the idea of a poem being called that basically. And this is written as an ekphrastic poem in response to the Jane Schönbrunn movie I Saw the TV Glow. It was written specifically for a anthology of such poems. Ugh! Dysphoria dazed, I refused to face my face in the mirror, favorite haunt. Ugh, how miserable to have a body. I imagined myself a flightless bird whose song had been stripped from morning's chorus. Dysphoria dazed, I refused to voice what is so obvious now. Change your life, Rilke commanded. I didn't listen. Ugh, how miserable to have a body. Before I was reborn transsexual, yes, I buried myself, suffocated, dysphoria dazed, I refused to live. Longer in that strange, static echo world, there is still time. Change your life, your body. Dysphoria, days spent wasted, saying, ugh, how miserable to have a body. This will be my last poem. It's actually an operatic art song, which is just a fancy way of saying that it's something an opera singer sings outside of the context of an opera. But I like calling it an arietta. It's not technically an arietta, but I'm a poet, so I can do whatever I want. It's called Stay Here. And you can actually perform this. So if anyone's an opera singer, it's out there on the internet. It's out there to perform and license, which is kind of cool. Stay Here. An arietta for trans femmes. I love your voice, love your bright noise, your hands. I rejoice in your perfect mascara, glory your regret, that familiar wound, a harmony we keep out of habit. Love your brittle, love your battle weary, love your fury, your grit, your gnashing heart, love your kiss tipsy last snort, love you here, love you safe, love you more than everything. Sister, let's praise that ordinary ache. Don't mistake flowers for funeral wreaths. You must breathe a little longer. Stay here. Love you tender as a lipstick stained ear. You will resist the gilded casket's grasp and let go of the past, restless with ghosts. May the stories of how you've lived outlast every elegy born from your mourning. Let us pray against storms another year. We'll spend not leaving each other behind. You find your way back to yourself instead. Let them learn your name before you are dead. Love your name. Love the way you say it slow, like a word you invented. Language forged for your mouth. Love your voice. Did I tell you? Tomorrow, let me hear your voice again. Thank you for having me. Shout out to Dustin and Wild Precious Life and to Small Harbor Publishing and Harbor Editions and to Kristen who's in the audience and everyone else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evelyn. Everybody, just bear with me for like 2 more minutes. Give another round of reactions, claps, all the things for these fabulous readers tonight. I'm also gonna make sure, I mean, Ashley, send me that email with your addresses. I want to also remind everyone that right now, Small Harbor Publishing is open for its Marginalia series. This is a chapbook series that closes on March 31st, and it is open to marginalized writers. And there is no submission fee for the Marginalia series. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I would ask everybody to share this. If you know someone, as you know, so many submissions do come with a fee, and no slight that we have competitions, we have to charge a fee as well for certain things because that's just the nature of the business. But we have a deep commitment, thanks to Allison Blevins, Christiane Weeks Rogers, everybody for supporting keeping the Marginalia series free for marginalized writers. So please, please, please share that information to submit. Up to 2 books will be picked for the Marginalia series. We are also launching, thank you to everyone who donated to my birthday fundraiser. We met the goal of $3,000 to support the Seton Book Prize for LGBTQI plus writers, emerging writers. So the prize is funded for 2 years. We're able to reduce the entry fee for that because that was something that was very important to Maureen Seton was accessibility. However, when you're doing a book prize for $500 and you have to pay a judge, there has to be some fee attached to that full length prize, but we are going to be able to reduce that cost. So stay tuned. Over the next few months, you're going to see information about that. And the final reminder is April 1st, 6 years. I don't want your money. I want you to talk about the Wild and Precious Life series. I saw you clapping. I saw you hearting. I saw your reactions if your camera was on. Please, please, please tell people on all your social media platforms that you enjoy the Wild and Precious Life series and that they should check it out. Costs nothing to hit a reshare on Instagram, on Blue Sky, or repost on Facebook. Those do more good than you even realize. So I do hope to see you on April 1st. And just remember, be kind to yourself. The world is a shit show. Be kind to others, but don't forget to be kind to yourself. Anxiety is real, and this world is scary right now. So hope to see you on the 1st. Have a great night, everyone. Be safe.